Chapter 12 Shopping. Mom allowed me to wear girly jeans and a pink t-shirt before we headed to the mall. Even though I was happy to finally be out of a dress, it now felt weird to be wearing something as restricting as pants. I kept making sharp moves, still trying to feel the imaginary dress sway. I missed that part and found myself wanting that feeling back. We walked inside, and Aunt Georgia took us to a store called Carrie's Fashion, which from the outside of it looked like any little girl's dream. The display window was filled with mannequins dressed up in the most girlish clothes I ever seen. Above them hangers were hung with more dresses, each worse than the next. I looked over at Mom, who held a steady grip on my hand. I knew I was not going to get out of this, and I was now stuck going into a store that back home would get me a sissy for the rest of my life. Aunt Georgia explained to us that this store is owned by a friend of hers named Carrie. Mom approved and looked down at me. "Ready to pick out your new dress, sweetie?" she asked in her annoyingly sweet voice. I wanted to leave, but I was forced into the store and in the land of girly dreams. Racks of dresses were on display in the center of the store. On the walls, every type of dress I could think of was hung there by size and by color. I wanted to go and to leave, but Mom held a grip on me as she and Aunt Georgia guided us to the front counter. "Georgia, nice to see you. How you are doing today?" the sales lady asked, coming around the corner and hugging her. The two seemed to be good friends who made me feel more about wanting to leave the shop. "So, who's this little cutie?" she asked, looking down at me. I did not say anything, hoping that Aunt Georgia would not introduce me as Adam. "This is my niece, Amanda," she said, patting me on the head. "We are here to find her address." I blushed and backed away as the lady walked around the counter. "Aw, she's adorable," she said, looking at me up and down. I tried to smile, but what came out was a mixture of a frown and a plea for help. "She's a tomboy," Aunt Georgia joked as she watched my face attempt the smile. "Doesn't worry, little one, we will take care of that right quick," the lady said as she took my hand to the wall of dresses and let me look at each one. "Any ideas on which kind of dress?" she asked, more to Aunt Georgia than to anyone. "Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know. I haven't seen Amanda in a dress for so long," Aunt Georgia said, smiling down at me. I wanted to crawl in a hole and hide for the rest of this vacation, but Mom and Aunt Georgia were standing in the way of the exits, trapping me in the store. Carrie led us to the racks of dresses in my size. Above the rack was a sign advertising Flower Girl Dress. "We mostly sell Flower Girl dresses for weddings," Carrie explained as she looked at them. "But we do carry some that would look great for the Easter Princess competition." I felt terror as the realization that I would soon be trying to wear one of these came into view. Carrie pulled some off the rack and put it up to me. "How about if you go try these on now and we will go from there," she said, handing them to Mom. I followed Mom and Aunt Georgia to the dressing room, regretting every step I made towards it. The dressing room was in two parts. One part was where the family waited as the girl got changed, and the second part, Mom picked out the first dress and I was pushed inside. "I'll get the zipper for you when you come out," she yelled through the doorway. I rolled my eyes and took off the shirt and the pants. I wished I could have stayed in them forever, but I could not. I took in a deep breath and decided to look at the dress a little before putting it on. Doing this, I hoped that I could get over my fear of the dress and move on. It was a simple dress that Carrie had found on the discount rack. The top was purple with silky transparent sleeves that puffed up, capping the sleeve. Below the purple sash was a white skirt that flared out with netting to help make it look a little fuller. I slowly slipped it over my head and put my arms in the straps. Before walking out, I quickly spun around so that the dress would flare up. I truthfully missed that feeling, and I wished I could keep that feeling without the girly clothing. I walked out and stood at the doorway, making sure that Mom and Aunt Georgia were the only ones in the room. "You look beautiful," Mom said, standing up to help me out with the dress. She made me walk out a little before zipping up the dress. I prayed that the dress would be too small, but instead the zipper went up all the way and Mom announced that it was the perfect size. I did a slow spin for her and got the next dress. This dress was all white, and at the bottom of the skirt were little purple flowers. I quickly put that dress on, more hoping that I would not have to keep dressing up in these stupid dresses for exceptionally long. I walked out with the back zipper still undone at the same moment that Carrie came in with more dresses for me to try on. In surprise as she came in, I quickly tried to react and accidentally made the dress fall to the ground, showing of my light blue underwear. I was originally facing Carrie and she could easily see my very not female package as a little lump through the underwear. "You're not a girl, are you?" Carrie asked, leaning on the door frame. I quickly grabbed the dress and tried to put it back on as fast as I could, wishing that I had not have done that. All eyes were on me, and I was scared. I was so scared I could not breathe. I probably just screwed up big time and ended the friendship that Aunt Georgia had with Carrie. Mom and I were probably going to be thrown out of the store and possibly the mall. I regretted coming out of the room and wish I had stayed inside for the few seconds that it would have taken for Carrie to come in and give the two adults the clothes. I looked down, not wanting to see their faces, but I knew I had to sometime. I slowly looked up and at Carrie. She still leaned on the door frame. Her arms were crossed as she waited for me to answer. Mom and Aunt Georgia both looked at me, wondering if I was going to answer or not. "No ma'am," I said. I put my head back down and this time the dress stayed on my shoulders, even though now I just wanted to get rid of it. I could hear Carrie slowly walk to the other adults and sit down on the bench next to me. "And why are you wearing a dress?" she asked. The way she asked surprised me, and I looked up to find her smiling sweetly at me. This was not what I imagined it would be like. Instead, she seemed more into the concept of boys wearing dresses, or at least me wearing them. "Amanda is being punished," Mom said, breaking the silence. I felt a little better that I did not have to explain why I was dressed like a girl. But now the reason was going to be leaked out to Carrie now. Mom explained why I was being punished for a while. I sat down on another bench facing them. Occasionally, Carrie would look over to me with a disappointing face when Mom would tell her about one of the times I was called to Dad's office. She ended with Gracie and how she gave some of her clothes to help make this punishment possible. Carrie smiled at me warmly and stood up to get a better look at me. "You look pretty good for a boy in a dress," she said. "You know, I got a dress in my back room that might be better for you." The couple it was for was going to have it for their flower girl to wear it. But a week before the wedding they broke up and left the dress paid for here. They told me to give it to someone who deserves it, and I do believe, Mrs. Amanda, you do deserve it. I watched in horror as she walked out of the room to grab the dress. Mom undid the dress and made me walk back to the dressing room and told me to wait until Carrie came back with the new dress. The new dress was light pink and the most girlish of all the dresses that I tried on before. I wanted to eject, but I did not want to make Mom upset at me, so I took the dress and slid it on. The first thing I noticed when I put it on was that the dress had a lot of layers. More layers than the other dresses that I had tried on hand. Once I found the right layer to put my head through, I quickly got my arms through the straps. The dress had spaghetti straps which felt awkward to me at first. The dress went down past my knees and just above my ankles. The top part of the dress went all the way down to my waist before a white sash separated the two parts from each other. The bottom was filled with all types of frills that I did not want, and I could only imagine what I looked like now. I walked out to Mom, who gushed and quickly went over to me and zipped me up, telling me how much she loved the dress. "Please don't," I begged, but Mom ignored me and turned around to Carrie, telling her that she will take it. I got back into my normal clothes, very thankful to be wearing jeans again and not the dress out of the store. I walked out of the store in front of Mom, who was holding the dress and its bag over the shoulder. I looked at it in anger as I thought about how I was going to have to wear it tomorrow and how I was going to have to wear it on stage during the Spring Princess competition. "You know what we're missing?" Aunt Georgia said, stopping in front of a shoe store. "Say no more," Mom said, pulling me into the store. I threw my head back and groaned, but followed the two women obediently into the store, wondering what we could possibly be doing in here. Mom and Aunt Georgia guided me through the rows of both boys' and girls' tennis shoes and stopped in front of an aisle with girls' dress shoes. I moaned as the two women gushed over how cute the shoes were. I just stood there quite hoping beyond hope that they would not make me try them on here in the store. But my wishes, much like everything I had wished for this weekend, came crashing down when Mom told me to sit down on a bench and take off my socks and shoes. I slowly obeyed as I took of the purple and pink tennis shoes and slid off the purple socks, revealing my bare feet. I watched as Mom and Aunt Georgia stood with their back towards me as they softly whispered to themselves as they looked at the shoes. I sat on the bench watching the two ladies, wondering why I was there for. There was already a pair of girls' dress shoes in my suitcase. Mom turned around with a pair of white low-heeled dress shoes. The heel was a lot taller than the Mary Janes that I had to wear. The toe was portion of the heel was covered but the back was not, instead there was just a single strap that will go around my ankle. I looked up at my mom wanting to plead with her that I could not wear them and that I did not like them. But I knew that if I did not wear them then mom would get mad at me. Instead, I sat there as mom bent down to my eye level and slid the heeled shoe on my foot and then fastened the strap around my ankle. "They're only an inch high," Aunt Georgia said. "Rebecca was your age when she first wore heels. She was proud to wear them and almost never took them off, said it made her feel grown up." I looked at her and then down to the heels that were on my feet. I did not feel any more grown up than I did a few moments ago, plus I could not tell why anyone would ever want to wear something like this. "Okay," Mom said, taking my hand. "Slowly stand up." I got up with her help and slowly wobbled for a second as I slowly got steady enough to stand by myself. "Do they fit alright?" Mom asked. I looked down at her, not sure of how to reply. I never worn heels before, and I did not know if the weirdness of wearing a shoe that was elevated at the heel was normal or not. "I guess so," I whispered. Mom took my hand again and told me to walk. I looked at her wondering if I could even take a simple step in these heels. "Go ahead, take a step." I took a cautious step forward ever so slowly as I wobbled a little. I used Mom to help keep me balanced. We walked up and down the aisle like that a couple of times before Mom stopped me by Aunt Georgia and then told me to go by myself. I looked at her a little frightened, but she just pointed to the end of the aisle. I looked at the end of the aisle and gulped as I put one foot in front of the other. My feet felt like jelly as I took my first steps forward. I slowly got to one end of the aisle and then back to the other end. Mom and Aunt Georgia looked at me approvingly and I could not help but smile. Somehow this minor achievement was one of the best things that has happened to me this weekend. I sat down and Mom helped me remove the heels and place them into it as the box. Aunt Georgia grabbed another box that was sitting on the bench and showed me it as contents. Inside was another pair of heels, just these had the heel and the toe completely open. When I bought Rebecca her first pair of heels, I bought her two. One to get used to and the other to wear for formal occasions. Aunt Georgia said. Of course, she had had a month to get used to heels before she became a flower girl. "You will just have to make do with a day." I nodded my head and took the box from her. "How about we go ahead and put them on, and you can try them out while your aunt and I look for shoes for ourselves," Mom said, taking the shoes from me and putting them on my feet. I got up and slowly started to walk down the aisle while Mom and Aunt Georgia walked to another aisle. I stood up slowly and began to slowly walk down the aisle, trying to keep my balance as I attempted to stay sturdy on my feet. I smiled a little as I thought about how I was doing this. But then I stopped when I heard voices coming from the other side of the aisle and getting closer. As quickly as I could, I went back to the bench and sat down and pretended to be reading the side of the heels shoe box. The two girls both wore blue jean skirts and tank tops. The older girl was wearing a pink while the younger girl, Emily, was wearing light blue tank top. "OMG Emily, I can't wait for tomorrow!" A girl who was the same age as I said as two girls walked into the aisle. "Oh, I know you are so totally going to win, Easter Princess!" The second girl, who about a year younger, said. The two girls walked in front of me and started looking at the heels. "Just think Emily, this year I will get Spring Princess, and once I get into middle school I will get Spring Junior Queen, and then in high school I'll finally get Spring Queen just like my sister." "I can't wait, Rhea," Emily said, looking up at the older girl. "Exactly, and don't worry girl. For your help I will make sure that you picked every year after me. Don't worry, we're in this together." Rhea tucked a strand of her long brunette hair behind her ear as she looked over. Almost trying to mimic her, Emily did the same thing. "Daddy should have my dress ready soon, it's been costume designed by a famous designer in New York," Rhea said. "Who?" Emily asked. "Does it matter?" Rhea asked, and the two girls giggled a little. "But aren't you worried about the other girls?" Emily asked. Rhea looked over at Emily and let out a little giggle. "Girl, please! There is no competition. I am the most popular girl in school, I am way prettier than the other girls, and I am a Troyer, my family is a legacy in this town. There is no way I won't win." The two girls moved to the end of the aisle, still never acknowledging me. "But what about girls that are not from our school?" "Who?" Rhea asked, stopping and looking at me. I stayed quiet and reread the sparse information on the side of the heal box. "That girl?" Rhea pointed at me and laughed. "I have never seen a girl that screams tomboy more than her. I mean, look at her generic pink shirt, short hair, and look at those heels that she is wearing, they're from the cheap rack." I tried to keep my cool as I pretended not to hear them and focus on the box. "I could beat her in an instant," Rhea said. "Hell, I bet she's probably got an old worn out dress that her mommy's going to make her wear." Both the girls started to laugh as they left the aisle. I could hear them giggle all the way out of the store as I finally put down the box. I sighed a little bit and stood up and wobbled over to a mirror and looked at myself. I did look like a tomboy, and if I wanted to beat Rhea and Emily, then I was going to have to change that. I was going to have to forget about being Adam, the boy in a dress, and start being Amanda, the very girly girl. From that moment on I had a new mission. I had to beat both Rhea and Emily. Both Mom and Georgia came back to the aisle soon after. "Are you ready, Amanda?" Mom asked. I nodded my head yes. "Good, because your Aunt Helen and your cousin Ethan are at Georgia's house waiting on us." I stopped in my tracks. My heart started to beat faster in my chest. I had forgotten about them coming.